The alarm started screaming at 3:17 in the morning. Red lights flashed down the long concrete hallway. Steel doors sealed with a heavy metallic boom that echoed like thunder inside a cave. Inside one of the most secure cells in America, a man named Daniel Harper sat upright on his concrete bed, heart pounding as armed correctional officers rushed past his door. No one was yelling. No one was running wildly. Everything was controlled. That was the first thing Daniel noticed. Even during an emergency, ADX Florence did not feel chaotic. It felt precise. Like every second had already been planned before it even happened. Daniel stepped closer to the narrow slit of reinforced glass in his door. From that tiny angle he could only see part of the hallway. Black boots moving fast. Radios crackling. A sharp command given in a low voice. Then silence again. Over the loudspeaker a calm voice said, "Full lockdown protocol. All units secure." And in that moment, Daniel understood something most people outside never see. ADX Florence is strict because it cannot afford not to be. But what happened that night would show him just how far the Supermax system goes to stay in control. To understand it, we need to go back to Daniel's first day inside the prison known as the most secure federal facility in the United States, ADX Florence in Colorado. The bus ride there had been quiet. No one spoke much. The building rose from the dry landscape like a concrete fortress. High fences layered over each other. Razor wire shining in the sun. Guard towers standing like silent watchers. Daniel had been in federal prison before. But this felt different. An officer named Lieutenant Harris escorted him through multiple secured gates. Each gate required keys, codes, and confirmation from a control room high above. Cameras followed every step. "Welcome to the Supermax," Harris said calmly. "Here, routine keeps everyone safe." Daniel did not respond. He was trying to understand how a place could be this silent. Inside, the walls were smooth concrete. No bars to grip. No open spaces where inmates could gather. Every hallway was clean. Every movement slow and supervised. He was placed in a single cell. Concrete bed. Concrete desk. Stainless steel sink and toilet combination. A narrow window angled upward so he could only see the sky, not the yard, not other inmates. He would spend about 23 hours a day there. At first, Daniel thought the rules were extreme. Meals came through a small slot in the door. Recreation happened alone in a separate, enclosed yard that looked more like a large concrete box with a grate above. Even showers were controlled by schedule. But after a few days something strange happened. Nothing happened. No fights. No shouting matches. No sudden chaos in the hall. Every door opened exactly when it was supposed to. Every movement was logged. Every officer followed the same routine. Daniel began to realize this prison was not built around reaction. It was built around prevention. One afternoon, during a rare escorted movement to a secure interview room, Daniel overheard two staff members talking in low voices. They mentioned incidents from years ago in other federal prisons. Moments when high-risk inmates had coordinated violence. Situations where staff were caught off guard. ADX Florence was created to stop that from ever happening again. The Supermax system exists to house inmates who require the highest level of security. It limits contact. It controls communication. It reduces opportunities for harm. Strict schedules. Strict isolation. Strict monitoring. Every layer reduces risk. Back in his cell, Daniel started noticing details most people would miss. The door had no bars, just solid steel. That meant nothing could be passed easily between cells. The windows were placed in a way that prevented inmates from signaling each other. Recreation areas were separated to avoid communication. Even mail was screened carefully. Silence wasn't accidental. It was engineered. Weeks passed. The routine became predictable. Wake up. Breakfast through the slot. Quiet hours. Limited recreation alone. Dinner. Lights dim. Daniel hated the isolation. But he could not deny something. The system worked. Until the night the alarms went off. Back in the present, the red lights were still flashing faintly in the hallway. Daniel could feel tension in the air even if no one spoke. Later he would learn what triggered the lockdown. An inmate in another housing range had attempted to manipulate a light fixture in his cell. It may have seemed small to an outsider. But in a Supermax prison, small rule violations are taken seriously. Because small actions can lead to larger risks. Sensors detected unusual movement. Cameras zoomed automatically. Staff in the control room identified the issue within seconds. Officers responded using trained protocol. The inmate was secured quickly. No one else was harmed. The situation did not spread. Daniel understood something powerful in that moment. The strictness was layered. Technology backed up staff. Staff backed up policy. Policy backed up safety. The system was designed so no single failure could cause chaos. Later that day, Lieutenant Harris passed by during routine rounds. Daniel asked quietly, "Why treat every small thing like it's huge?" Harris looked at him for a moment. "Because this facility holds some of the highest risk inmates in the country," he said calmly. "If we ignore small problems, they grow. Supermax isn't about punishment. It's about control and prevention." Control. That word stayed with Daniel. The silence. The structure. The isolation. It was all part of a bigger design. One built after the federal system learned hard lessons from the past. But just when Daniel began to believe everything here was completely predictable, something happened that broke the routine. The deep mechanical buzz echoed again. His cell door lock shifted. That sound was not scheduled. Daniel stood slowly as the steel door made a clicking noise it had never made before during normal hours. And then, without warning, his cell door began to slide open outside of routine movement time. The steel door slid open halfway and stopped. Daniel did not move. At ADX Florence, doors only opened during scheduled movement. Breakfast, recreation, medical, legal visits. Everything had a time. Everything had a log. This was not on the schedule. 2 correctional officers stood outside his cell. "Come." Focused. Professional. "Step to the back wall," one of them said. Daniel followed the instruction immediately. Hands visible. Back against cold concrete. The officers entered, secured him in restraints, and escorted him into the hallway. The unit was silent. Every other door remained sealed. Red lights still glowed faintly above the range. As they walked, Daniel noticed something unusual. More staff were present than normal. Supervisors. Technical staff. Even a lieutenant from Central Control. Whatever had happened earlier was bigger than they were saying. They guided him into a secure interview room and secured him to a metal ring fixed to the floor. The room was plain. Gray walls. Camera in the corner. No windows. Lieutenant Harris stepped in. "You're not in trouble," Harris said calmly. "But we need to ask you a few questions." Daniel frowned slightly. "About what?" "About what you may have seen. Or heard." It turned out the inmate who tampered with the light fixture had not acted alone. Investigators believed there had been attempts to test response times. To observe patterns. To see how quickly staff reacted. In a lower security prison that might not seem serious. In a Supermax facility, pattern testing can be the first step toward coordinated disruption. Daniel had once spoken to that inmate weeks earlier during separate recreation times, when their enclosed yards were positioned far apart but within faint shouting distance. They had exchanged only short words. Nothing meaningful. Still, in a place this strict, even minor contact mattered. Daniel explained exactly what he remembered. No plans. No secret conversations. Just brief comments about the weather and routine. Harris listened carefully. "That's why this place is strict," Harris said finally. "We don't wait for something to become dangerous." Daniel was escorted back to his cell. The door sealed shut with its familiar heavy sound. Hours passed. The lockdown continued longer than usual. Meals were slightly delayed but still delivered. Every officer moved with the same steady pace. The next morning, the loudspeaker announced that normal operations would resume. Later that week, word spread quietly through official channels. The inmate who tampered with the fixture had been relocated to an even more restricted housing unit within the facility. Increased monitoring. Reduced privileges. No dramatic headlines. No chaos in the yard. No injuries. Just adjustment. Daniel sat on his concrete bed and thought about what had happened. In other prisons he had seen tension build slowly. Small rule-breaking ignored. Arguments allowed to grow. Staff stretched thin. Here nothing was ignored. That strictness came from history. Years ago, serious security incidents in federal prisons forced leaders to rethink how to house the most dangerous offenders. The result was the Supermax system, a design built on prevention, isolation, and layered security. At ADX Florence, inmates are housed in single cells to limit coordinated action. Movement is staggered and monitored. Communication is screened. Staff operate under detailed protocols. The goal is not chaos control. It is chaos prevention. Days return to routine. Breakfast through the slot. Quiet reading hours. Limited recreation in a secure, enclosed space. Medical checks. Lights dim at night. The silence no longer felt mysterious to Daniel. It felt intentional. One afternoon during recreation, He looked up through the grated ceiling at the Colorado sky. A small square of blue surrounded by concrete. He finally understood. The strictness was not about making life harder just to be harsh. It was about managing risk at the highest possible level. Housing inmates who had demonstrated they required extreme security measures meant removing unpredictability from the equation. Every rule closed a gap. Every procedure sealed a weakness. Every camera eliminated a blind spot. Later that month, Lieutenant Harris stopped outside Daniel's cell during rounds. "You see it now, don't you?" Harris asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "If this place wasn't strict," Daniel said, "it wouldn't stay safe." Harris gave a small nod in return. Exactly. That night, the unit lights dimmed on schedule. No alarms. No flashing red lights. Just silence. But this time, the silence meant something different. It meant the system had worked. ADX Florence remains one of the most secure prisons in the United States because it was built from lessons learned the hard way. The Supermax system exists to prevent high-risk inmates from harming staff, other inmates, or the public. Its strictness is not accidental. It is structured, layered, and constantly reviewed. For Daniel, the moment his door opened unexpectedly became the moment he truly understood. Strict rules. Controlled movement. Constant monitoring. Immediate response. That is why ADX Florence is so strict. Because in a place designed to hold the highest risk offenders in the federal system, prevention is everything. And in the Supermax system, control is what keeps the silence from breaking.